Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Arden, and today we're reviewing Ice Cream Man number 22. So, just a short little review today as I'm kind of pushing my way past a bit of what we'll say is a backlog of various comics. But I did happen to pick up an extra copy of Ice Cream Man after we reviewed issue number 21. And I don't think we're going to be ongoing reviewing this series or anything like that. It really isn't the kind of run or series that begs that sort of thing, especially because it's an anthology horror series and there really isn't much to take away from each individual issue as other than like whether or not one finds it scary. This one wasn't scary, but it sure did manage to be creepy as per standard operating procedure for this series. W. Maxwell Prince is the writer, Martin Morazzo is the artist, Chris O'Halloran is the colorist, and good old Leon does the lettering. Literally how he's credited. And Morazzo's artwork always stands out as I think he's just able to draw, or she, I don't know. Oh yeah, it's Martine, I think is their name, I should say. But I think the way that he tends to draw faces leans heavily into the uncanny valley in such a way that like every facial expression and even just relatively mundane conversations between characters can have a very creepy overtone to it, and it just leaves me perpetually unsettled even when reading what turned out to be a relatively lighthearted book by far. And I've read quite a few Ice Cream Men at this point. This is by far the least creepy one out there, but it's not a bad thing necessarily. I actually really liked this story for what it was. And what it was a ringing endorsement of Planned Parenthood, to be honest. So, for those of you who are uncomfortable with that, well, get ready. This ain't the stream for you. But we aren't going to get into it too much. But you should read this book. It provides an interesting perspective. A perspective I've already shared, but one that I think is really good. And the whole premise of this book is each day, this young woman, this teenager, opens up a new thing from her advent calendar. Usually they're just little toys and gimmicks, like they would be from any kind of standard advent calendar. Like, maybe not the fanciest one in the world, but more of a dollar store one. So one day it's a chocolate egg, another day it's like a little gift card for a coffee place. All just little knickknacks. But one day it's a living cockroach. And that mystery is never quite resolved. The parents are equally freaked out by that. But that kind of gets into the whole Ice Cream Man thing. And it just has these creepy moments. But the crux of the story is really this young woman gets pregnant and she doesn't know what to do with this baby. And she's kind of facing all this conflict and not really sure what to do. Her boyfriend's pretty supportive, but they're both so young and they really aren't ready for any of this. And as the creepiness and horror builds up, also as she has like these weird dreams of ducks and imagery of the ducks eating her and then them eating the ducks, and it's bringing up like this pseudo cannibalistic idea. But ultimately, when she finally, like, I don't know, things brighten up on the 23rd when she goes to Planned Parenthood and suddenly she's feeling a lot better and smiling. And this is the only Ice Cream Man issue I've ever read with a happy ending. And it literally ends with like a little word of support, saying like, happy everything, whatever you do or don't celebrate, donate to plannedparenthood.org. It's a ringing endorsement of that organization and women having health options, which I really didn't expect out of a horror book, but you really can't go into Ice Cream Man expecting any one thing. The last two issues that we reviewed have actually been very different from the rest of the series, which is usually just much more standard creepy nonsense with Ice Cream Men stalking people or goodness knows what else. Every issue is a little different, but 21 was some random neo noir story with a creepy ass cult going on, and this thing was about a teenager getting an abortion. But it was interesting. It was still creepy and really good, and I recommend Ice Cream Man. But there's another cool thing, and another reason that we're talking about all of this, because hey, a cool side of it all is that you don't have to like read a bunch of issues to really pick up on anything. You can just pick up any random book of Ice Cream Man, and now you can do that with a new series called Haha. And it's the exact same thing by W. Maxwell Prince, where it's just this anthology comic book series, and now there's going to be two of these kind of running in 2021. So I haven't had a chance really to check out Haha yet, but as far as horror books go, like Ice Cream Man's one of my favorite, and I suspect Haha, it's a weird title, but it'll be the same thing. It seems a lot more clown themed, which honestly seems right up Prince's style of writing. He has a good, very unique way of writing horror. It's I guess we'll say subtle, but it's more of if like he's paired well with his artists, most specifically like Morazzo and O'Halloran, doing the art and the coloring, uh, because it's all in the atmosphere. You can have your horror with like your standard blah blah jump scares or gore or creepy stuff. Most of that has very little emotional effect on me. You also can get truly surreal. I don't. There's that David Lynch style too, but that's its own kind of thing. And I would say this is sort of a third direction that I've seen in other horror, where it's all just sort of in the atmosphere and sort of soaking you in. I suppose Lynch does that too, but he has other tricks up his sleeve and is maybe like the apex version of that. Which is why I thought of him. Ice Cream Man reminds me almost of a lesser version of it, maybe like on the level of what WandaVision has achieved. And I would say both are really good, just because it can't get to the level of Twin Peaks doesn't mean that this isn't worth reading. And I somewhere in the meta info for this, I put this is the series that Twilight Zone wants to be, and I'm specifically referring to the new reimagined version of Twilight Zone, which I don't know if any of you guys watched, but I did, and it was awful. As many people have said, it's like a very unique kind of blend of awful. I didn't no, I didn't enjoy them, but I didn't hate watching it either. So it's not terrible, but it's so broad and obvious. It never quite manages to achieve what it's going for. This book in particular is an interesting example of how to do social commentary without it. Like, I don't know. I thought this was a really interesting book, and I quite enjoyed it. I I thought it was also brave in a way no episode of the Twilight Zone is. So let's put it that way. Like this is really open in its politics in a way I didn't it would be, and I appreciated it. Obviously, I'm going to be slanted in that regard, and I'm sure there's going to be a crowd out there that doesn't care for that sort of thing. But like I said, it's all laid out here, and I kind of stand by how this book presents the issue and stuff. So let's put it that way. Like if you disagree, maybe check it out and see for yourself what you think of it. I say that not with antagonism. I like this might make you think about things in a different way, but like in a positive way. If you really believe what y'all say, then it shouldn't be that big a deal. And yep, that's all I really have to say on the matter. So, like I said, it's just gonna be a short little review. It's an older book, anyways, but I'm kind of pushing my way through a bunch of stuff to catch up a little bit because I'm a bit behind on some of my reviews here. So we got a whole bunch of interesting stuff to talk about, and this was kind of chief among them in terms of my personal interest. But Ice Cream Man's always been a pretty self-indulgent review series for me, and I realize that it's very much just something that I particularly like. I always consider myself a horror fan, but not a lot of the horror stuff that other people like. I guess like, I'm very picky, is what I guess I'm getting at, because most horror doesn't really do much for me, or it has to be interesting in some other way. Uh, Stranger Things, for example, I don't find scary, but I really like cinematography, characters, how at least in the first season it worked with the okay, and even in like some of the like second and third season stuff, how they played up the '80s stuff, it makes it a fun ride. Steve Harrington alone. Michael K does say great book, been reading since day one. Well, and that's kind of interesting because it gets into something I was saying earlier. Personally, I didn't I haven't been reading since day one. It actually caught my attention back in 2019 uh, when I was looking just across reviewer stuff in their best of the year kind of thing. Ice Cream Man came up a couple of times. I read, knowing it was an anthology, I just grabbed some books at random and read them and loved it and have been a fan ever since. But a cool thing about that is be an awesome supporter of the series like Michael K is, or you can be a much more casual reader like I am, and there's really no difference. I think after a little while, you do start to pick up on patterns, visual motifs, we'll say, because that's what they really are more than anything else across the different issues. But that's just like consistent imagery. That's the use of the ice cream man who shows up across all of these books is varied considerably in terms of how that character or image is used, but it is kind of this present theme. I don't really think it affects your enjoyment of any one book over the other. So you can literally just start with this book, with the last one we reviewed, with the next one. Same thing with Haha. And while it wouldn't work for every book, I do love a good anthology run like this, especially one so consistently written. I haven't read a bad Ice Cream Man book yet, and hopefully I never will. Michael K says, right, it's an anthology. You can read it as an anthology or an ongoing and still enjoy. Yeah. Well, and a cool thing about, like, and I'll build up on that a little bit more too, is when I was first reading it, I do think I had a good run somewhere in probably the teens in terms of issue count, where I read a few in a row. And yeah, you can get something out of that. I haven't really seen or heard much of it in trade. This is one of those indie books, a rare example in these days where individual issues are almost the more preferred model. But I could see the book itself being an interesting one because then you get like six of these stories all in one book. Wild ride, because the shame of it all, and perhaps I really do need to review a haha book, is so far we reviewed two very atypical issues of Ice Cream Man. I have to say, there's some other like I've read some stuff there. I was like, ooh, like it really gets out there, and I would say this one's like the least scary one of them all. But that's okay. It was fun for other stuff. And then issue number 21 also wasn't terribly scary. It was also just a very different kind of take on a noir style story. um, but those two feel way different from the other books I read, which feel a lot more in line with traditional horror. So don't let that fool you. And maybe, hopefully, I'll be able to pick up a copy of Haha that is along those lines a little more so I can kind of walk you guys through it because this one's a bad example. Not that it's like a bad book, it's just I don't feel it's a good example of what the rest of the series is like. It has a happy ending for crying out loud. But yeah, so we'll leave it there. But thank you all for watching. I'll say this again because I say this at the end of too many reviews of indie books, but I do appreciate the people like Michael K. Watch this video and bless you for it because this is my YouTube behavior 101. My guess is this is something you like, but not a lot of other people talk about it in your life. So you saw someone on the internet was, and you leapt at the opportunity to do that. I love. That's how I discovered a ton of YouTube channels and stuff. That's actually how I discovered Comic Island and joined up with Joey. But for those of you that are just checking out this video at random, good for you. and you're the right kind of person for. I was right about what I was saying about Michael. And you're the right kind of person for checking out something like that. But it's so, uh, and I must stress, I am not being condescending when I say this. It's brave, or like, I don't know. It I admire it because it takes something out of someone to just like dive into something. I don't know, it's hard to describe, but there's a cost to getting into things. Even when you get like through the PS Network membership thing, I get free games, and there's a ton I haven't even tried yet because, and you get those games for free, but because like there's an investment cost in playing that game and learning it and putting all that time into learning it and not being sure whether or not it's worth it, and it's hard to do that because no matter what I say or describe, it really comes down to like you actually reading, to determine whether or not you're going to like this. I would say even your politics might not be predictive of that because this issue evokes a lot of politics if you give it a fair shot and think about what it's saying. Because I do think it also gives some voice to anti-abortion sentiments and fears and concerns and all that stuff, and even just, well, especially fears. Let's put it that way. um, so my point just being, if you are one of those people, or I just don't be afraid to do that. But like I do that all the time. I put stuff off that I should check out that a dozen people recommend to me, and then when I finally do check it out, I end up loving it. But it does cost us something to do that. Whereas it cost me nothing to watch Superstore for like the third time ever, just because, well, I like that show and it's been trending on Netflix with me right along with it. Because if you've ever worked in retail, that's a fun show. I've seen it before, but because I know I'll like it, it's a comfortable, easy thing for me to go back to. And sometimes at the end of the day, after someone's been working, it's hard to justify it. So what I like to do in that situations like that is, I had this book. I was been sitting on it since December, obviously, but I tend to pace myself. Just even though we review these things, and but like it's not like I haven't been reviewing things in between then and now. I know to not push myself or make myself sick of these books, and I kind of have a sense of when to do that. So that's why Death Metal took a little longer than maybe it should have. That's why we're reviewing a Christmas book now, but also it doesn't matter for Ice Cream Man. Plus, it's a little evergreen. Um, I don't know. Holiday specials come out all the time. So, yeah. I hope you guys had a happy holidays, but we've been through all that already. So, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks again for watching. Really appreciate it as always. And have a good one, everybody.